statement just a short time ago. In it, they thanked investigators and the community for the support they've gotten since her death.
But 2 years after the Ohio State student was found murdered off campus.
It's because of this love that we have for our daughter we stand before you.
Here by accident, all right? It didn't just happen to stumble upon this and you're here. You're here because we have a pretty good amount of evidence on what happened.
On Wednesday, February 8, 2017, Reagan Toes called her father like she always did. Her shift at Bodega was almost over. She told him not to worry. Her car was parked right behind the restaurant. Nothing could happen to her. By midnight, she would be dead. Reagan Delaney Toes was 21 years old, a senior at Ohio State University studying psychology. She grew up in Maumee, Ohio, raised by her parents Toby and Lisa alongside her younger sister Mackenzie. When she was 8, her father took her to a football game at Ohio State Stadium. She looked up at him that day and said something simple. One day she would study here. It wasn't a dream, it was a plan. At Anthony Wayne High School, Reagan didn't just succeed, she dominated. She graduated with a 4.5 GPA and became the first student in school history to earn a varsity letter in tennis for 4 consecutive years. But grades and trophies only told half the story. Friends described her as the person who showed up without being asked, the one who could feel what you were going through before you said a word. She combined discipline with humor, ambition with kindness. She was the daughter every parent hopes for. When she arrived at Ohio State, she threw herself into everything: classes, volunteer work, student activities, and her serving job at Bodega. By February 2017, she had already completed her graduation requirements. She had secured a job offer at Cleveland Clinic, one of the most respected medical institutions in the country. She planned to work for a few years, save money, then open her own practice focused on addiction treatment. She had her entire life mapped out. She just needed to make it home. Brian Lee Galsby was born in 1988. By the time he was 29 years old, he had become exactly what the system feared most: a predator who had never been stopped. His childhood was marked by abuse and neglect, the kind of trauma that leaves scars no one can see. But trauma does not excuse violence, it explains it. And Brian's violence had been escalating for years. By his early 20s, he was already known to law enforcement, gang activity, drug dealing, multiple accusations involving assaults against minors, both male and female. In many of those cases, charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. Victims who were too afraid to testify, a system that moved too slowly. Then came 2010. A woman 8 months pregnant was sitting in her car with her 2-year-old child. Brian forced his way inside. He threatened her, made her drive to an ATM, forced her to withdraw money. Then he drove her to a remote area and sexually assaulted her in front of her child. She covered her child's eyes. She begged him not to hurt her. She told him she was raising her children alone. He didn't care. Afterward, he forced her to take him to her home, where he assaulted her again. Then he made her brush her teeth repeatedly, destroying DNA evidence. He left with a stolen DVD. The victim later refused to testify, choosing to protect her identity. Prosecutors reached a plea deal. The charges were reduced to robbery and attempted assault. Brian received 6 years. He served 5.5. In prison, he racked up more than 50 violations, fights, theft, defiance. He was transferred between 5 facilities, and in 2016 they let him out. He was placed in a transitional housing program, fitted with an ankle monitor, required to be inside between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. But the system failed. The monitoring company never reported his violations. And on February 8, 2017, Brian Lee Galsby was hunting. February 8, 2017. 9:45 p.m. Reagan finished her shift at Bodega and walked toward her silver Acura parked behind the restaurant. The lot was dark, quiet. She had her keys in her hand. Brian Lee Galsby was waiting. He stepped out of the shadows, pointed a gun at her face, forced her into her own car. He took the driver's seat. Reagan sat frozen in the passenger seat, her phone still in her pocket. She didn't know it yet, but she would never send the goodnight text her family was waiting for. Between 10:00 and 10:14 p.m., he forced her to direct him to two ATM locations, Chase Bank and Huntington Bank. Surveillance cameras captured her face at each machine. She withdrew $60. Her hands shook. Her eyes were wide. She did everything he told her to do. At 10:18 p.m., the car pulled into a secluded alley. It stayed there for 12 minutes. Forensic evidence would later confirm what happened inside that vehicle. Reagan was sexually assaulted while a gun was pressed against her. Between 11:12 and 11:41 p.m., the car moved again. Two gas stations. Sunoco, Turkey Hill. He bought gasoline, cigarettes. He was calm, methodical. Just before midnight, he forced her to drive south to Scioto Grove Metro Park in Grove City, a dark, isolated area surrounded by trees. He ordered her out of the car, made her remove every piece of clothing in the freezing February night. Then he walked her into an open field. From close range, he shot her twice in the head. Execution style. Reagan Delaney Toes died instantly. He dragged her body deeper into the field, poured gasoline on her car, tried to light it on fire. It didn't catch. He left cigarette butts behind, drove away in her car. His ankle monitor recorded every movement. The next morning, a jogger found her body, naked, alone, identified only by a small circular tattoo. Reagan's roommates waited all night for her to come home. When she didn't, they went to Bodega the next morning. Her manager told them she had left on time. He reviewed the surveillance footage. Reagan walked out, got into her car, and disappeared. He called the police at 8:00 a.m. to report her missing. Hours later, a body was found at Scioto Grove Metro Park. No identification, no clothing, just a small circular tattoo. Reagan's roommates confirmed she had recently gotten that exact tattoo. She had no others. Detectives moved fast. They questioned her ex-boyfriend, Jake. He had posted on Instagram that she was in a better place. It looked suspicious, but his alibi was solid. He was grieving, not guilty. Then the forensic results came back. DNA recovered from Reagan's body matched a registered sex offender, Brian Lee Galsby. Cigarette butts at the scene, receipts for gas and ATM withdrawals, all of it pointed to him. His ankle monitor data was the smoking gun. It placed him at every location Reagan had been that night: the restaurant parking lot, both ATMs, the alley, the gas stations, the park. The monitoring company had failed to report that he violated his curfew. He was supposed to be inside by 10:00 p.m. Instead, he was out hunting. A tactical unit arrested him. At first, he denied everything. Then investigators laid out the evidence. His DNA, the surveillance footage, the timeline he cracked. He had missed. Eventually, Brian led them to the murder weapon, a gun he had tossed near railroad tracks. The trial began in March 2018. Prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence. Two women who visited Brian in jail testified that he had confessed to them. He admitted he assaulted and killed Reagan. The jury found him guilty on all 9 counts: aggravated murder, rape, aggravated robbery, kidnapping. But they could not unanimously agree on the death penalty. Brian Lee Galsby was sentenced to 2 life terms without parole, plus 66 years. Reagan Toes never walked across the stage at her college graduation, but Ohio State University honored her anyway. On May 7, 2017, what should have been one of the happiest days of her life, her name was read aloud. Her family stood. The auditorium fell silent. Her degree was awarded posthumously, Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. Her parents, Toby and Lisa, were left to bury the daughter who had promised she would be safe. Her sister Mackenzie lost the person who understood her most. The life Reagan had so carefully planned, Cleveland Clinic, Her own practice, helping people recover from addiction, would never happen. The family sued the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction for negligence. The case was dismissed. They then sued the private company responsible for monitoring Brian's ankle bracelet. That case ended in a confidential settlement. The amount was never disclosed. No amount of money could bring Reagan back. But her death did change the law. In 2019, the Ohio legislature passed the Reagan-Toews Act. It requires stricter penalties and extended supervision for offenders who violate the terms of their release. It ensures that monitoring companies must immediately report violations to authorities. It was a small victory born from unbearable loss. Brian Lee Galsby sits in prison today, serving life without parole. Prosecutors attempted to appeal the jury's decision and seek the death penalty, but the appeal was denied. He will die behind bars. Columbus remembered Reagan not as a victim, but as the young woman who earned a varsity letter 4 years in a row, who made people laugh, who saw the best in others, who wanted to help people heal. She was 4 months away from starting her dream job. She was walking to her car after a normal shift. She trusted that the system designed to protect her would work. It didn't. Her name was Reagan Delaney Toews. She deserved a lifetime. The world is colder without her light.